December 12, 2019, 2:30 p.m, Ravenhall Correctional Centre, Melbourne. A man is told he is being moved, not released, not transferred to another prison, moved from one unit to another, from the specialist mental health facility where he has spent the past 3 weeks to a standard locked-down cell in another part of the same building. He asks staff if he can have a moment to collect some personal photographs. He wants to keep his photos. Staff agree. They watch him collect them on body-worn camera footage that will later be played to a coroner's inquest. He is argumentative when told about the move. The footage shows that clearly. At 3:30 p.m, a psychiatrist is sent to his new cell. The cell door is blocked by a mattress. Nobody can get in. At 3:38 p.m, a code black medical emergency is raised. He is found unconscious on the floor. He cannot be revived. Brent Reker, 35 years old, national president of the Finks Motorcycle Club, found dead in his cell exactly 1 hour after he was removed from a specialist mental health unit without a psychiatric assessment because the staff treating him were afraid of him. Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to hit subscribe to support us. That is exactly what keeps us going and gives us the motivation to keep making videos like this one. Now, let's go back to where this starts.
Brent Reker was not a peripheral figure in Australian organised crime. He was the national president of the Finks Motorcycle Club, one of Australia's most established and violent outlaw motorcycle organisations, known as BJ, heavily tattooed across his face and body. The kind of physical presence that the inquest would later hear defined how both prison staff and fellow inmates responded to him. In a 2018 interview with Daily Mail Australia, just over a year before his death, he invited journalists into the Finks' new clubhouse in Victoria. He had thrown out past members, he said. He was rebuilding. He told the journalists the Finks planned to become a force for good, community outreach, changing their image. Whether that vision was genuine or strategic image management ahead of legal proceedings, the public record cannot settle. What the record does show is that around the same time he gave that interview, his home was the target of a drive-by shooting. He was released on bail in January 2019. His bail was revoked the following month. He was on remand at the time of his death, facing serious charges including conspiring to commit aggravated home invasion, trespass with intent to assault, threat to kill, assault, drug offences and weapons charges. He had been transferred from Port Phillip Prison to Ravenhall Correctional Centre in November 2019, specifically because he had made previous attempts to take his own life. The Moroka unit at Ravenhall Correctional Centre is not a standard prison wing. It is a specialist facility, designed specifically for inmates with complex and challenging mental health needs. It provides intensive 3-month programs of specialised care, treatment and support. In the years of staff working there, the inquest heard, nobody had ever seen a prisoner removed from the Moroka unit mid-program. It simply did not happen. Reker was placed in the Moroka unit in November 2019, specifically because of previous suicide attempts. He had a documented mental health history. He was an identified at-risk prisoner. 3 weeks into the program, staff became concerned. The inquest heard there was a perception that Reker had an influence over other prisoners inside the unit. A prison employee told the court directly, his demeanour was not like that of the other prisoners. He was a much bigger man in stature, and the rest of the unit prisoners seemed to look up to him. There were suggestions, according to evidence put to the inquest, that he had been asking prisoners whether they needed to slash up to get something done regarding cancelled dental appointments. The concern hardened into a specific fear. Staff worried Reker was organising a mass self-harm incident among fellow prisoners. That fear, according to the inquest, drove the decision to remove him from the Moroka unit. On December 12, 2019, at 2:30 p.m, he was transferred out, without a psychiatric assessment. The Justice Assurance and Review Office later found the decision was ill-conceived and against the original plan for his care.
The body-worn camera footage played to the inquest shows Reker being told about the move. He is argumentative. He asks for time to collect his photographs. Staff agree and watch while he does. He is taken to a new cell in a lockdown section of the prison. The psychiatrist who was supposed to assess him in the new cell arrives at approximately 3:30 p.m. The cell door cannot be opened. A mattress is pushed against it from inside. At 3:38 p.m., code black, staff force entry. Reker is found unconscious on the shower floor. He cannot be revived. The inquest heard that despite his repeated threats of self-harm and relatively recent suicide attempts, Reker had been listed on the lowest risk category. That categorization meant his mental health history was not necessarily shared with the prison staff responsible for managing him day to day. The forensic care team, which provides mental health care in Victorian prisons, moved him without a psychiatric assessment specifically because, in the words of a prison employee to the court, there was a lot of angst around the feeling the forensic care team had with Mr. Reker at the time. The safety of staff members was put above Reker's mental health. A prison employee conceded that directly under examination. Coroner Paul Laurie's inquest examined the events leading to the move, Reker's mental health history, and the risk assessments made by staff. The inquest, as of the reporting available for this investigation, has not yet delivered a final finding.
In early 2018, Brent Reker sat across from a journalist and talked about change. He had cleared out the old guard, brought in new people. He wanted the Finks to mean something different. A man heavily tattooed from head to face, who admitted in that same interview that the way he looks attracted police attention, describing a future where his organization was a community asset rather than a criminal enterprise. Whether he meant it, whether any of it was real, is a question the record cannot answer, because by December 2019 he was dead. The vision in the 2018 interview, the drive-by shooting at his home later that year, the bail revocation in early 2019, the transfer to a specialist mental health unit after previous suicide attempts, the removal from that unit without a psychiatric assessment because staff feared him, found on the shower floor of a locked cell at 35 years old. The same man, the same year, all of it.
The Victorian coroner's inquest into Brent Reker's death is formally examining three things: the events leading up to his removal from the Moroka Specialist Mental Health Unit on December 12, 2019, his mental health history and how it was, or was not, communicated to the staff responsible for his care, and the risk assessments made by prison staff in the hours before his death. The Justice Assurance and Review Office review found the decision to move him was ill-conceived and against the original plan. A prison employee confirmed under examination that the safety of staff members was prioritized above Reker's mental health needs. His mental health history, including recent suicide attempts, was listed at the lowest risk category, meaning it was not necessarily accessible to frontline staff. The inquest has heard that it is highly unusual for prisoners to be removed from the Moroka unit without completing the 3-month program. Staff told the court they had never seen it happen before in their employment spanning numerous years. As of the reporting available for this investigation, the inquest is ongoing. A final finding has not been delivered. Here is what the record of Brent Reker's death actually shows, and the questions it raises that the inquest is still working to answer. A man with a documented mental health history and previous suicide attempts is placed in a specialist unit designed for exactly that situation. 3 weeks in, staff become afraid of the influence he is having over other prisoners. They remove him from the program without completing the required psychiatric assessment because the team responsible for his mental health care was frightened of him. 1 hour later, he is dead. The first question this raises is specific and institutional. If a mental health care team inside a prison cannot safely manage a high-risk patient because that patient's presence and reputation create fear among the people treating him, what does that tell us about whether the system was designed to handle the intersection of serious criminal history and serious mental health need? The two things are not separate. They appear together repeatedly in the population these systems are designed to manage, and the evidence put to the inquest suggests that when they appeared together in the same cell, the system chose the fear over the care. The second question is harder. Brent Reker told the journalist in 2018 that he wanted to change his organisation and what it stood for. Whether that was real or not, by 2019 he was in a mental health unit, having made previous attempts on his own life. The man who ran one of Australia's most feared motorcycle clubs was also a man who was documented as being at serious risk of harming himself. Those two things existed in the same person, and the system that was supposed to manage both, on December 12, 2019, managed neither. For our community, the lesson is not about Brent Reker specifically. It is about what happens when the complexity of a person, their violence, their influence, their mental health, their documented risk, gets reduced to a single category. Lowest risk. One box on a form. One categorization that meant the people responsible for keeping him alive did not have access to the information that would have told them how close to the edge he was. Systems that process people in categories, rather than as the full, complicated reality of what a person actually is, will always produce gaps. And in those gaps, people die. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to Lifeline on 0800 5433 54 or text 1737. Free, confidential support is available anytime. What do you reckon? When a system has to choose between staff safety and patient care, and it chooses staff safety, who should be responsible for what comes next?